We've got Joe and Kandhan here today to talk about what's new and what's next for RPA developers.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, good morning and welcome. I think this is the first demo session at Build, so very excited for you all to be here. So yes, we're going to look at RPA and Power Automate Desktop, which is our RPA product. Out of curiosity, how many of you have used Power Automate Desktop? Okay, quite a few. Nice. All right, so the agenda, very simple. I'm just going to give a very brief overview of Power Automate Desktop, and then this is a demo session. We're going to spend most of the time in a live demo. So Power Automate Desktop is our RPA product, and it's part of the Power Platform family. So Power Platform family is a suite of tools that you can use as a professional developer to build automations, applications, agents much faster. And you can also have folks who are not professional developers build applications, agents with you as well. We love when there's fusion teams where you combine professional developers and non-professional developers to build this type of solutions. And if we zoom in into Power Automate is our low-code automation platform. And it's a very complete platform. We have things from process mining to discover automation opportunities. We have a rich set of tools to build automations. And one of those tools is Power Automate Desktop, which is RPA automation. For those of you who don't know RPA is when you need to automate a system that doesn't have an API, which there are plenty of there. And the only way to automate them is to basically simulating what a human would do with mouse and keyboard. And that is RPA, or robotic process automation. But enough slides, let's go ahead and jump right into the demo. All right, so for this demo, we're going to look at the following scenario. Imagine that we've been tasked to take this Excel file, which has hundreds of rows, and we need to manually, automate it, put them into this form. So you could watch me like here, copying and paste all these rows in the form, but that will probably take more than the 13 minutes that we have left. So let's see how we can automate this using Power Automate Desktop. So let me open Power Automate Desktop. This is Power Automate Desktop. It comes pre-installed in Windows 11. You can also download it for free in Windows 10. And we have different ways to start building automations. You can use Copilot, as many of our Microsoft products. You can either start describing or using a recorder. But let's go ahead and let me start building a desktop flow from scratch. So I'm going to go and create a new flow. Let me call it data entry. And this is going to open the Power Automate Desktop Designer. And now in a few seconds, we're going to see on the left a list of hundreds of actions, and on the right, a blank canvas where I can drag and drop those actions. So here we have them. As you can see, we have actions of all different types. Of course, we have UI automation actions, we have browser automation actions, we have automation actions on Excel, file management, and so on. So what I could do is I can start drag and dropping the different actions to fill in the form into the website. Or what I can do is use the recorder. So we have the recorder where basically I can just show it what to do, and it will automatically generate the action for me. And we have two recorders. We have Record with Copilot, where you can basically share your screen, talk to the recorder, and using AI, we're going to take that screen sharing session and convert it into an automation. Or we have a simple recorder, which is basically you can capture clicks, and we'll replay those clicks. Because this scenario is very simple, I'm going to use the standard recorder. And now what I do is I'm going to start the recording session, and I'm going to basically start filling the form, and the recorder is going to capture those information. So let me go ahead and type a product name, an ID, a quantity, a price, a supplier, click Submit, and click Continue. So this is what I needed to do. And the recorder has captured all those steps, and it has added them for me into the blank canvas. So I can see it adds the action to open Excel and populate the different fields. If I go ahead now and run this, there we go. If we go ahead and run this, it's going to go and perform those actions for me. So basically, it's going to repeat those same actions. And the great thing of doing live demos is that you can check that I'm not touching the computer. It's actually Power Automate Desktop who is doing these actions for me. OK, so this is very simple use case. Now we need to take the data from the Excel file and populate it there. So what I can do is if I go back to my desktop flow, I can then go and find the different Excel actions and start dragging and dropping and building the logic of reading from Excel and putting it into the form. Something I want to highlight for those of you who know Power Automate Desktop, something that we just recently launched is favorites. So as you can see, we have hundreds of actions, and you can favorite those actions. So you can see them right away in a dedicated session if you have a set of actions that you use frequently. But instead of dragging and dropping all these actions, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Copilot, and I'm going to instruct Copilot to do the Excel reading and Excel iteration. So what I've asked Copilot to do is I want to take the Excel file, which has 100 rows, and I want to extract each of the columns, so product name, product ID, and so on. And what Copilot is going to do now in a few seconds is going to add for me those actions in here. So out of the box, it gives me the action to read the Excel file where I specify. It's going to read the 100 rows, and it's going to extract the different columns. So what I need to do now basically is all these actions that I generated with the recorder, I just have to drag and drop them after each of the variables. So here, for example, I have the action to populate the product name. What I can then do is, instead of having the hard-coded value of product name, I can replace it by a variable. So this is the product name variable that comes from Excel. And I would then go and do the same for the rest of the populate text field actions. To avoid watching me dragging and dropping actions, let me just switch to a flow where I've already done that, which is this one. So it's the same flow. The only thing that I've done is I've placed the populate text fields in the right position. There's one more requirement that I got from the business, is that the price is coming in dollars, and we need to do the conversion to euros. And we don't have an out-of-the-box dollar to euros action, but what we do have is a number of scripting actions. So within your desktop flows, you can add code actions to do a task. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a PowerShell script right after the price action here. And I could then go ahead and write the PowerShell script to do the conversion between dollars and euros. Instead of doing that and searching the internet, I'm going to use Copilot. And using natural language, I'm going to say, hey, Copilot, I need a script where I'm going to give you a variable called price in dollars, and please convert it into euros using real-time exchange rates. So let's go ahead and generate it. And in a few seconds, we're going to get back the script. There we have it. We can, of course, review it. We can make changes, but everything looks good. It was even able to find a public API to get that currency conversion. So let me go ahead and save it. And the only change I have left is to change the, let me put it here. So instead of taking the price from the Excel file, we're going to take the price that is coming out from the PowerShell scripts, which is this one. All right. And let me add a breakpoint here. So we're going to run the desktop flow until this point to verify that the PowerShell script works as expected. So now again, in this time, it's going to read the data from the Excel file, and it's going to start inputting the data into different fields. And it's going to stop here at price because I put a breakpoint. So let me switch to the designer. And here on the right, we can see the variables coming that I've been using by desktop flow. And we see that we got the original price from the Excel file, and the one that has been converted is this one in euros. So everything looks good, so I can then continue, and I can have this run. And in this case, this is running on my computer in what we call attended mode. So I'm watching it doing this. But once I finish building my desktop flow, I can then publish it and run it in what we call unattended mode. So you can run it on a VM, for example, on the cloud, on the background, so it doesn't block your machine. And now it's going to continue for the rest of the rows, but because we have a lot of things to demo, let me stop it. And let me pass it over to Kandhan, who's going to show us some more exciting updates that will launch into Automate Desktop. Kandhan, please.
Thank you, Joe. So let me get started with one of the features that has been most requested by our developer community. I'm talking about dark mode. Dark mode is now live in Power Automate Desktop. So let me show you how we can switch to dark mode. So I'm going to go back to the console and, okay. And then I hit settings and to start and save.
Woo!
There it is. Now that we've seen how to switch to dark mode, next I want to talk about what updates we've made to how you can organize your flows. So we've introduced tags. Tags is a simple way for you to label and categorize your flows so that you can use them efficiently. So now let me show you how you can add a tag. So you can click on your flow, go to properties, going to go to information. Yep. Here you can select any tags that you already exist in your environment, or you can create a new tag. In my case, I'm just going to create a new tag called invoice and hit save. Now that you added your tags will appear with your flow, and also you will be able to filter the list of flows that you have in your environment by your tag. So here you go. Yeah. So now we've looked at tags. Next, I want to talk about how do you ensure that the desktop flows that you build are exactly performing the task that you want to. For that, we've introduced test cases. Test cases are now built right into the Power Automate Desktop console with their own dedicated tab. Test cases come with the testing module with 2 new actions that will help you start getting get started on creating your test for your desktop flow. So let's go ahead and create our first test case. So I'm going to say test product entry. And here you select the desktop flow that you're validating. And for this purpose, I created a desktop flow just very similar to what Joe had, with the only change that at the end, I actually extract the final invoice amount and I validate that is exactly what I want. So that way I know that my invoice entry is working as expected. So I'm going to search for my desktop flow. Now this is going to load up our very familiar designer interface. And we're going to have two new actions that are going to help us get started on building our test case. All right. And now I'm going to search for test. And this is the testing module with the two new actions that I talked about. So now I'm going to use test a desktop flow. And here I'm going to pick the desktop flow I'm testing. And as I mentioned below, there's going to be a variable produced, which is the output variable, which is the final invoice amount. And at the next stage, I'm going to assert that the value is exactly what I want. That. And I'm going to say test success. That's my assertion message. So now I'm going to go ahead and save the test. And once it's done saving, I can go back to the console. And here's my test. So I'm going to run my test. So what this is going to do is going to first kick off the desktop flow, do the inventory update, and then at the end save. And then it's going to verify that the inventory item is exactly what I want it to be. Looks like it's done. Now it should be verifying. And if I go back, still running. Okay, I think it's because I have this also open in the other screen. Maybe I can, oh, it passed actually. It did pass. It just didn't see it there first time. So this is test cases. And now let me switch gears and talk about our next feature, static analysis. So what static analysis is it evaluates your flow as you build them and checks them against a predefined set of rules that try to catch violations in terms of security, performance, design, and maintainability. And how this helps is that you can ensure that every desktop flow written complies with your organizational standards and best practices. And that way you can scale your automation securely and responsibly. So let's take a look. So for this example, I'm going to take the flow that Joe just built. And as you see here he uses an Excel file. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend this Excel file is actually password protected. So I'm going to add an input variable called password. And I'm going to use the input variable to open my Excel file. So once I do this, if you notice here, we've introduced a flow checker. And this is calling out that I have two violations. And now I can click on one of the violations, see what it is. This is because I'm using the password insecurely because I'm using it as plain text. So now that I know what this violation is, I can go ahead and fix this by clicking on variables and marking this as sensitive. I have another violation, which is that my input variable does not have a default value. For that, I can click on my input variable and give it a default value. And there it is. I'm all good. Static analysis, currently it runs 11 checks, and these are predefined, and you can configure it. The severity can be configured to whatever makes sense for your organization. And in the future, we will also let you author your own set of rules. And with that, let me hand it over back to Joe.
All right, amazing. Thank you, Kandhan. So we just have 1 minute left. So that gives me enough time to close this demo session. So first thing, we've announced a lot of great updates to Automate Desktop here at Build. So please do check out the Automate blog where we go and describe in details everything that we've done across authoring, governance, and also the exciting computer using agents. We're going to have a number of sessions during this week. We also release updates every month. So please do keep an eye to our post as we release notes every month. And if you want to learn more about RPA, we have our Intro to RPA link. So check that out. You're going to get a more overview of what you can do with Power Automate Desktop. And if you really want to go deep, we have an RPA in a package day where you can spend the whole day learning about Power Automate, how to use AI to bring AI into your RPA automations, and much more. And with that, thank you so much for attending this first demo session, and wishing you all a very nice build. Thank you.